Hey friends, before we dive into today's episode, I've got something exciting to share. I'm hosting a special Black Friday giveaway, and you could be one of 3 lucky winners. Here's how you enter. 1, rate the Beyond Bloated podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and send me a screenshot for 1 entry each. 2, leave a written review on Apple Podcasts and get 2 whole entries. And 3, share the podcast on your Instagram stories, tag me at beyond.bloated, and you'll get 2 more entries. What am I giving away? Well, first place will score a $100 Whole Foods gift card, a 1-hour virtual grocery assistant session with yours truly, my optimal gut health grocery guide, and a recorded masterclass on mastering ingredient labels. Second place will get a $25 Whole Foods gift card, the grocery guide, and the masterclass recording. And third place will grab the grocery guide and the masterclass. The giveaway ends on November 27th, and winners will be announced on November 28th. So don't miss out. Head to the link in the show notes and submit your screenshots to enter. Good luck and happy shopping. Welcome to the Beyond Bloated Podcast. I'm Karlee, a certified health coach helping women ditch their bloat without having to follow super strict and stressful protocols. As someone who's struggled with all sorts of digestive issues for over 5 years, I know exactly how you're feeling. I also know that there's a way to feel better, and it doesn't have to involve tons of expensive supplements and insanely restrictive diets. Join me as I share all of my bloat-busting wisdom to help you say goodbye to that bloated belly and regain your confidence. It's time for you to move beyond bloated. If you are at all familiar with my story, you'd know that I used to be quite the party girl. Throughout my university years and even a couple years out of university, I'd be drinking. I'd drink with my friends, go out to some club or bar, stay out way too late, and then grab a burrito on the way home. So not only was I poisoning my body with alcohol, but I was also spending money that this broke university student didn't have, eating terrible food way too late at night, and having consistently terrible sleeps. I was tired all the time, had horrible headaches the next day or 2. Sometimes my hangovers would last 2 days, and I would wake up with that looming feeling of anxiety. After learning about gut health and getting my shit together, my desire for drinking alcohol drastically diminished. I started to notice how much worse I felt when I drank, both during and after, and I realized that it really wasn't worth it 99% of the time. I say 99% because I have not given up alcohol completely, but today's guest may just change my mind. Elly Young is an alcohol-free health and wellness coach who helps women break up with alcohol and balance their hormones. In our conversation today, Elly will share with us her own journey with alcohol, explain how alcohol may be causing your PMS and digestive symptoms, and provide some tips on how you can reduce your alcohol intake to start feeling better. With the holidays coming up, this episode is needed more than ever. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Elly Young to the Beyond Bloated podcast.
Thank you for having me, Karlee. It's an honor to be here.
Amazing. So as always, I love to give our guests the spotlight. So could you please tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you inspired to help women with their alcohol-free journey?
Yeah, so I'm an alcohol-free life coach turned hormone balancing expert. So that really just follows my natural journey. I gave up alcohol just before I turned 40. And we were kind of in the thick of the pandemic. I had just finished homeschooling my 2 boys who were pretty little at the time. They were in kindergarten and 3rd grade, and that was a pretty stressful time for me. And I was drinking too much, like most people. And so I went into January of 2021 kind of with this idea that I was going to detox and do dry January. And I really struggled with it. I didn't make it. I ended up quickly adjusting it and only drinking on the weekends and saying, okay, I'm only going to have 2 glasses of wine. And I was kind of miserable and still getting hangovers, and it was occupying so much of my brain space. So at that point, I actually got a little help. I started reading a bunch of different quit literature books, and I hired a coach. I actually thought, you know what? I've hired nutritionists, I've hired trainers. I don't know why I'm so ashamed to actually hire somebody to help me kind of break this habit. And that's exactly what I did. And I never drank again. I don't think that was my goal at the time. I really just wanted to take a significant break. More superficially, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to kind of feel younger again and start sleeping better again. And I experienced such amazing health benefits from cutting alcohol. But what I started to realize is like everything else was changing hormonally with my body. I was turning 40. I'm an athlete, and all the things that used to work were no longer working. And so I really started diving deep into the hormonal science and perimenopause. And I started learning so much and applying it to myself and my clients, that it became kind of the new package deal. It's like, okay, first let's start working on cutting alcohol out of your life, and then you're going to experience such amazing health benefits. We can really start fine tuning these hormonal levers, and you're going to feel 10 years younger, dramatically different. Most people, it's such a gift once you start to understand how much your hormone health impacts your life.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah, very cool. And it is a challenge for a lot of people to give up alcohol. It's one of those things that you're more weird if you don't drink than drink these days, right? And it's such a strange society that we live in because alcohol is poisonous to the body. And I
Yeah.
think we forget that.
Yeah.
So we like drink on the weekends and we don't realize this is poison and it shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be, this is what you do, this is accepted, this is fine. It should be something that we really think about before we act on that. With that being said, could you tell us a little bit about how alcohol impacts the gut, the hormones, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you're right. Alcohol has been so normalized in our culture. It's been so subconsciously conditioned into us that we rarely question what it's doing to our body. We rarely make the link of, yeah, we understand hangovers, but we're not making the other connective jumps to just how much it's upsetting our health. And it really does start with the hormone health. Actually, I would back that up and say it really does start with your sleep. It disrupts your sleep so significantly that it raises your cortisol. And a lot of people don't understand cortisol, that it's actually a hormone. It's something that needs to be detoxed by your liver. And it sits at the top of the hormone hierarchy, meaning that it impacts the release of both your thyroid hormones as well as your sex hormones, your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So your cortisone levels are really important to manage. And cortisol is good in some sense, but too much of it obviously can be really destructive to our overall health. Also, alcohol affects insulin, which also sits at the tippity top of the hormone hierarchy, which is one of the things that affects all of the metabolic diseases, all of the things that become really challenging as we age for women. It stems from insulin resistance, which again, it's affected by your sleep. It's affected by the gut lining. It's affected by your hormone levels. So it is really, really critical for women to understand that most of the things we're suffering from, especially from like age 35 on, is hormone imbalance, and that alcohol is kind of enemy number one. I'm really sorry to say, but it really is.
That makes complete sense. And I used to drink excessively when I was in university and just out of university, I'd go out partying every weekend and I felt terrible all the time.
Yeah.
And I was in my early 20s at that point. So
Yeah.
it's not like I was going through perimenopause or
Yeah.
having any drastic hormonal shifts. I was just poisoning myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I don't drink ever because that would be a lie, but
Yeah.
I have reduced my alcohol intake like 95%.
Yeah.
And I have noticed such a big difference in my sleep. I actually just drank last weekend and I hadn't drank in like 4 months. And I
Wow.
drank over the weekend and my sleep was so bad.
Yeah.
And it was bad, not for just that night, but the following night. It didn't just last one day. So do you have any insight on like how long alcohol impacts your sleep and like makes you feel terrible?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that is a factor of the cortisol. So alcohol is really tricky. So it's a lot of things. A lot of people understand it as being a depressant, but it also can be this upper, and it's actually considered an upper and a downer, and that's because the initial dopamine high that comes from drinking alcohol, it lasts about 20 minutes, and that's where you see the blood alcohol rise and this big dopamine boost. The brain, recognizing that out of balance state, it's always trying to achieve homeostasis. So it releases something called dynorphin, which is essentially the opposite of endorphins. It's like a downer. It pulls you below your dopamine baseline. So it essentially creates a craving for more alcohol, for more dopamine. We just recognize this as like the buzz wearing off, and we go get another drink, right? You kind of start to feel antsy. You're like, oh, I don't feel so good anymore. And it not only are you not like even, it's actually you're lower than when you started drinking in the first place. The brain, if you continue drinking, you'll get more dopamine, but it'll never go as high as that first drink. It's kind of like a diminishing returns. It just kind of keeps going lower and lower. The dynorphin keeps pulling you down and down, and dynorphin lasts in your system much longer than the buzz of alcohol. Your brain reacts to this downer effect by releasing adrenaline and cortisol, which typically spikes at 3 a.m., waking you up, rattling your brain, and then, giving you anxiety in the morning. And this adrenaline and this cortisol can last for days in your system. And that's where you see the major sleep disruptions, the disruptions to your blood sugar levels, everything. It essentially causes chaos in your body. You're kind of on this roller coaster. And again, it creates cravings for itself because nothing is as quick and as easy as the dopamine released from alcohol. So over time, we like develop tolerance. That's why you're able to drink more as life goes on, because your brain is like, ooh, we don't ever want to get that out of balance again. So it is like proactively releasing this dynorphin, this downer effect, and that lingers in your system. That's why the overall lingering effect of alcohol is anxiety and depression. You're either rattled or you're just feeling really low.
Yeah, that makes sense. We all felt that, you wake up the next day after drinking and you just have this unshakable anxiety and you're
Yeah.
like, what? I thought I had fun.
Yeah.
But then you think about it and you're like, did I have fun?
Yeah.
Or did I just poison myself and now I feel terrible? And a lot of the times, like you probably could have had fun without the alcohol. I've noticed that as I've gotten older and as I've steered away from alcohol more, like I can go out to events that like when I was 20, I would have never went to if I was sober. I would have been like, oh, I'm not going out to the bar sober. Like I'm going to be
Yeah.
so bored. But now I go out with my friends for like dinner and drinks, but I'll get a water or,
Yeah.
I'll go out to the music bingo and I won't get an alcoholic beverage and I still have fun. We do need to get out of that mindset of like, you need alcohol to have fun. I challenge you to try going to an event without alcohol and see if you have fun, because I bet you will. I bet you will have some fun. Now that we've talked about the hormone aspect, I'd love to talk about gut health as well. And I know hormones and gut health are all intertwined. Specifically, I know alcohol really damages the gut lining, and that can cause food sensitivities and all these other digestive issues. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I know we all work really hard to get healthy microbiome, right? We're all eating the probiotics, we're eating the prebiotics. And unfortunately, it can take a long time to establish like a really good, healthy gut microbiome. And alcohol, unfortunately, can wipe that out in like one kind of drinking situation. Alcohol it sterilizes things, right? It kills germs. So if you think about your gut lining as essentially a bunch of good and bad germs, it's going to wipe out. It actually wipes out the good bacteria, creating like an overgrowth of the bad bacteria, which then eats that mucosal lining, creating leaky gut, which essentially just means any toxins in the gut coming in from our toxic food supply. Unfortunately, even when we're doing our absolute best to eat really clean, there is still microplastics. There's still estrogen, containing, hormone containing foods and things that leak through and cause inflammation throughout the body. And so it's really that brain, gut, and liver axis, because the liver is essentially responsible for processing all the different toxins coming in. So not only are extra toxins coming in through the gut lining, the liver is also being taxed by alcohol. And so alcohol is priority number one for the liver. So when you are drinking, it really can't process any of these other toxins. So they remain in the bloodstream a lot longer, causing a lot more inflammation. And that's essentially where you just see chronic inflammation, chronic illness throughout every system in the body with people that are overindulging in alcohol.
Absolutely. So we drink alcohol, it's poison for our body, and then the liver is overburdened because it's trying to process this toxin. It's causing inflammation in our body, which is like a huge problem. Inflammation in the body is such a problem,
Yeah.
causing autoimmune diseases, leaky gut, which leads to food sensitivities, hormone imbalances. You have a terrible sleep.
Yeah.
So it really is piling on.
Oh, yeah. I should note too. So the liver is also responsible for detoxing hormones in your body. So when it's being taxed with the alcohol, it can't process mainly estrogen. And this is where you see estrogen dominance, because again, a lot of the toxins in our food supply create this extra estrogen in our body. And estrogen is really interesting because there's kind of like two kinds. It can actually metabolize in two different directions. One being kind of bad for us, like cancer causing. That's the one everyone is afraid of. Another one being really cancer preventative and cancer fighting. And you get that from like cruciferous veggies and green tea. There's all sorts of things that really help you kind of prevent cancer, and it inhibits cell growth. And then the toxins and chemicals and things that are in our food can actually promote cell growth. And so we're trying to eat the good stuff to help our liver metabolize estrogen into that direction. But when it is being taxed with alcohol, it cannot eliminate the bad estrogens that are floating around. So that's where you see estrogen dominance. And for those of your listeners who don't understand, it's a very common term being thrown around a lot. Estrogen dominance is basically responsible for any bad PMS symptom that you're experiencing, like heavy periods, acne, sore boobs, disruption to sleep, mood swings, you name it. And so many of these symptoms we've been taught as women are just like, you're just one of the unlucky ones. You just have a bad period. And we haven't been taught to get to the root cause of our hormone imbalance. And we've just been taught to like treat it, like take a pill, mask the symptoms, but don't actually get to the root cause of what is disrupting your hormones. And so this is kind of a big PSA service. Like alcohol is one of the first things that can go, especially if you're younger and you're not, 35 on heading into that perimenopause, like you're way ahead of the game health-wise. Like I wish I would have quit sooner, because once I did, I literally did feel 10 years younger. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to have all of these PMS symptoms that I thought were just a given.
Yeah, I had the same experience actually with my periods. Like when I was in high school, I didn't actually drink in high school, but I just had terrible gut health. Like I ate terribly, I didn't exercise, my sleep was a nightmare. So I was just a very unhealthy individual, and my periods were terrible, like so much pain, unpredictable, the typical PMS symptoms that when you
Yeah.
tell a doctor, they're like, yeah, that's just your period, too bad.
Right.
So eventually I went on birth control. And then my symptoms went away-ish.
Yeah.
But as we know, that's just masking the problem and causing other problems in the meantime.
Yeah.
So I actually came off birth control about 2 years ago, like all of it. I said, no more of that. And I came off, and I was like so nervous because I was like, my periods used to be so bad. Like, what am I going to get coming off of this? Completely fine. I have like 28 days to the T. I have absolutely zero pain, the lightest periods. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And this is because, for one, I rarely drink. Like I would say a handful of times in a year I drink, and I've cleaned up my diet. I've exercised, I get sunlight, I manage my stress, all the things. And I don't take any medication, and my periods are fine. So you're totally right that we don't need to accept PMS as a standard period for a woman. Like you don't have to suffer every month, and it is every month. So you really don't want to have to handle that every 28 days. That's horrible.
And I would add too that it can seem intimidating to women to think like, oh, I have to make so many drastic health changes. You can really balance your hormones in like one cycle. Once you start to understand what your body needs hormonally throughout the different phases, it's a technique called cycle syncing. And not a lot, it's kind of trendy, but maybe not amongst in some circles. If you haven't heard of it, check it out because you essentially adjust your eating style, your exercise style, and your stress load according to the different phases of your cycle. It's really easy to follow. It's not extreme. The short and long of it is essentially the first half of your cycle, you're really working on building estrogen. And that loves more of a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet. It likes healthy fats. It always loves cruciferous veggies, which are going to always be helping promote detox in your body and supporting the liver. And then in the back half of your cycle, when progesterone is on the rise, you really want to have more carbohydrates. No, I always say no pizza and French fries, but nature's carbs, you want to lean into like the sweet potatoes, the squashes, any of those kind of carbohydrates that come from nature. They're really nutrient dense, and they essentially allow you enough blood sugar to make progesterone. So your blood sugar will naturally be higher, which is why we crave carbs in that back half of our cycle. And we want like the chocolate and the pizza and all the junk. But if you actually lean into like sweet potatoes, I swear you'll feel so much better. Literally in one cycle, I have seen women with like PCOS, who are drinking all the time. And it's like, if we just cut your alcohol for 1 month and try to cycle sync your nutrition, they're like, I had a normal cycle. I didn't have cramps. I didn't have sore boobs. And they're like blown away. It's a game changer, and it's something you can correct really quickly.
Wow, that's very cool to know. I didn't realize the carb thing with the different cycles. I have noticed that when I try to go to spin class a week before my period, I have no energy. I'm like, this is the hardest thing in my entire life. If I go the week after I get my period, I'm like, wow, I like an Olympian. I'm so good at this.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Karlee here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the Ultimate Guide to Bloat Busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it.
Yeah, that's another cycle syncing kind of like rhythm thing that you can follow. Yeah, about the 8 days before your period, if you're on like a 28-day cycle, your progesterone is peaking right there around day 20, and estrogen is kind of peaking in tandem just below it. If you are estrogen dominant and estrogen is on top, you suffer. We want this ratio between your progesterone and your estrogen to kind of be fine-tuned. And you do that by giving yourself a little more carbohydrate during this time. One of the rules of thumbs, and I follow Dr. Mindy Pelz. She wrote an amazing book called Fast Like a Girl. No more than 150 grams of carbohydrate. So it's not like just like wheels off the bus, eat whatever you want. But I don't really count grams. I just know that I am very satiated when I'm eating it with a protein and a healthy fat. And I don't worry about overeating my sweet potatoes. But essentially that decline, once the hormones start to drop, our body experiences like hormone withdrawal. Contrary to popular opinion, like hormones actually make you feel good. They don't make us crazy. They actually make us really powerful, and they make us feel really great. They give us a lot of like strengths and assets. But when we do decline them, you do experience a little withdrawal. And that is like essentially kind of those low feelings. So we lean into nurturing ourselves, slowing down, trying to keep cortisol low. There's a saying that when cortisol is high, progesterone is shy. And we want to really support progesterone in this back half of our cycle. And you do that with carbohydrates, low stress, not super intense workouts. If you're an exerciser, it doesn't mean don't work out at all. It just means scale it down a bit where it's not super crazy intense.
Yeah, I have seen like people posting about that or read about it on how to exercise for your cycle as well.
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting to me. And I have taken that into consideration now because I have noticed I cannot spin when I'm about to get my period. If someone is listening and they're like, yeah, I really want to give this whole sober thing a try, what would you recommend they start with, especially now that we're going into the holiday season and alcohol is everywhere you look?
Yeah, so I've got a couple different free resources for you guys here. I've got one, if you're like a little sober curious, I would try my free resource is called Breaking Up with Booze. I love to like equate breaking up with alcohol like a bad boyfriend because you're like, you keep going back to them. They don't treat you very well. They like shame you the next day. They make you not eat well and not work out. It's just like, but for some reason, we just keep going back to them. And so that's why I call it Breaking Up with Booze. And so in this resource, I teach you kind of the 3 most common beliefs that kind of keep people stuck in the drinking cycle. It's those subconscious beliefs that we talked about earlier, where it's like, you think you need it to relax, you think you need it to connect and have fun. And it's like, once we start poking holes in this subconscious belief and you start questioning it, all of a sudden you feel differently about alcohol and it allows you to behave differently. It's just neuroplasticity. My method for helping women break up with alcohol has zero to do with labeling anybody or shaming you or thinking like you have something wrong with you. It's really like, we've been conditioned to drink this toxic substance. We need to kind of reprogram our brains and start to kind of like get new information that is going to make us feel differently. It's like, no, I don't want to put that in my body. My body's a temple, So Breaking Up with Booze is one free resource. You can find that at findmyselffree.com. That's my website. And I also have a hormone balancing checklist. So if you're someone who's like, I kind of got a grip on my booze, but I want to start getting, into hormone balancing, this is a great kind of entryway into like cycle syncing, understanding what estrogen and progesterone are doing in your body, and just kind of how to start hacking it.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I will link those for everybody so they can go and take a look. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So when you decided to give up alcohol or start reducing your intake, did you replace it with anything or did you just cold turkey quit? I know mocktails are kind of a thing right now, but I also know some mocktails are loaded with sugar, which I don't love. So what would you recommend swapping alcohol with?
That is a great idea. So having a non-alcoholic beverage, the non-alcoholic industry is absolutely booming right now. So there's no shortage of really cool drinks to try. You don't just have to drink sparkling water. A couple of my favorite drinks they're actually adaptogenic. So they have like natural occurring plants compounds that help to just mellow you out and naturally treat stress in your body. No hangover. And these are low sugar. I wouldn't even call them mocktails, but they are considered like non-alcoholic, like tonics. And one brand is called Hiyo, Hiyo. Love them. I also love Recess. Recess is great for hormone balancing and great for the back half of your cycle because it has magnesium, which is going to help you sleep. Often in the back of our cycle, when progesterone is high, we don't sleep as great. So we need that magnesium. Sunwink is another great adaptogenic brand. So yes, you would be surprised how easy it is to diminish cravings if you just substitute a really yummy adaptogenic mocktail in your hand instead of your glass of wine. It's like, oh, that was pretty easy and you feel great and you won't want to drink 6 of them. You're going to drink like 1 or 2 and be fine. It's funny. There aren't a lot of other beverages where we like pound them, right? Only alcohol. It's really interesting, right?
Yeah, you're so right. Although my mind does go to my boyfriend who will literally sit there and drink 6 bubbly waters in one sitting. And he is the only person that I know who will do that. But you know what? I'd rather him do that with sparkling water than alcohol.
Yeah.
So no shame there. Go ahead. You
Yeah.
want to drink 6 bubblies? Go for it. But thank you. Those are very good tips. And I do think it'll help too, because I feel like part of it is you don't want to seem like the outcast. So if everyone around you is drinking and you don't have a drink, or you just have like a boring glass of water, you might feel a little weird at first. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like you might get used to it. I don't care anymore. I'm like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
drinking water, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, you know, if you have your own little fancy drink, you might feel a little more included, and not like you're weird. I keep saying weird, but it's not weird. But in this society, it's pegged as weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think you're weird. Drink your water, drink your fancy drinks, and you'll probably feel, I know you will feel a lot better
Yeah.
because of it. That being said, where can people find you to learn more about hormones, about sober curiousness, and all the things?
Sure. Yeah. So you can find my different coaching offers at my website, findmyselffree.com. I also have my own podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and it's called Find Myself Free. And lastly, you can find me on Instagram. I do a lot of like coaching reels, sharing a lot about hormone health. And we just finished, or we're about to finish Sober October. So I shared a lot of funny reels about cutting alcohol. And my handle is find_myself_free.
Perfect. I will link all of that for everyone as well, so everyone can find you. And I would love to challenge everyone. I know that we're going into the holidays, so everyone is kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna put this off until January or never.
Yeah.
And I want to challenge you to try to do at least reduced alcohol throughout the holidays, because if you can make it through the holidays and have less than you normally would, then the rest of the year is probably going to be a breeze. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I would say that any of the awkwardness you might feel when you're first giving up alcohol, that discomfort isn't like, oh, I need alcohol to socialize. It's really just you're out of practice socializing without alcohol, because we probably haven't done it since our teen years. Like basically every social event revolves around alcohol. And so embrace that discomfort. Is like, oh, wait a minute. I remember when I was a kid, I did not need alcohol to have fun. I belly laughed. I had the best time. When did it change into like, I'm only going to have fun if I drink this substance? And really question that. Like, do I want this substance in a glass to have that much power over my life, And so embrace the awkwardness, lean into it, and trust that your connections are going to be more authentic. You're taking in more information because all of your senses are online. Alcohol dulls your brain. It literally takes your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved part of your brain, offline. So you're taking in less information, which is why we don't remember stuff. Details are fuzzy, or you black out altogether. And so, life is just too short. I hit that point and I was like, I want to remember all of it. And when you're numbing the lows of your life, you're also numbing the highs. And so sure, it can feel a little uncomfortable when you first cut alcohol. You might feel a little raw. You might experience a little anxiety, but that only means you're going to be able to experience all of the good stuff in such a bigger magnitude as well.
I love that perspective, because you're so right. How many times do we drink and then we wake up and we don't even remember? We're like, yeah, I think I had fun, but it's like you don't even remember the supposed fun that you had. Whereas if you go out sober, you're remembering all of it, and it can be equally, if not more fun, because you don't have the anxiety, and it's expensive to drink as well, people. So thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. I am sure everyone is going to love this, even if they're a little hesitant to give up alcohol. This is true information, and if you really genuinely want to feel better, give it a go. See how it works for you. I mean, as you said, you weren't intending for it to be forever, and then it was. So start with that mindset. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Karlee. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Bloated podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow gut goddesses. If you'd like to chat about today's episode, send me a DM on Instagram at beyond.bloated. Until next time, bye!